Before There Were Stars is a storytelling board game of sorts in which players sit around, roll dice, and draw cards, and use those cards to dictate a story based on a predetermined structure provided by the game. And that idea gave me an idea. I could have probably worded that sentence better. That idea gave me an idea to write a short story and present it to you by following that structure. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So we've got this card, and this gives the structure for our chapters. And what we do, we take these constellation cards, and the idea of the game is that each player represents like a tribe of people, more or less, and these people come together around a campfire, kind of like what's shown on the card that you can't see, probably, and they tell the stories of their people, or their civilization, or whatever. At least that's the premise, but you can just kind of do whatever you want. That's usually how we play the game. We use this as a basis, but also just kind of wing it, which I'll also be doing at some point. But today we're just going to be keeping things to the book. So normally how the game works is you have your deck of constellation cards and you draw 5 cards from the top of the deck. This table's not big enough. And then you take your 12, and then you take your 12 dice and you roll them. Oops. And then you get all the numbers together, and each of these cards has dice on them, and you get to choose 2 cards based on what dice you rolled. For example, the temple, if I have 2 3s and a 4, I can grab the temple. Or you could blind draw 1 card from the top of the deck if you don't like any of your options, but then you have to take that. And the idea is that each chapter you draw 2 new cards, and then you have to write a story based on the criteria of each chapter by utilizing the ideas or the constellations on the cards you drew. So I've got 2 1s, 3 2s, 1 4, 3 6s, and 3 5s, which means I can't choose the river because that requires a 3. I could choose lightning because that requires 1, 2, and 4. The mouth is an option because I've got a 1 and a 4. The anvil is an option because I've got a 2, a 4, and a 6. And the temple is not an option because that also requires 3, which I don't have. So now I choose my 2 cards. Lightning and anvil seem... So we're going to go with those. So now I would have to write my story utilizing these in some way, and the first chapter's prompt is in the beginning. Let's do that then. Got my journal here, so we can get creating. And that's what this video is going to be. It's just going to be me going through all 4 chapters on my own and creating a short story based on the rules of the game. And now here comes the part that's just going to be fast forwarded, cut, whatever, as I actually try to figure out what to do with these freaking cards. Chapter 1. In the Beginning. In the beginning, the cosmos were born of a brilliant burst of magic from which emitted the essence of creation. By that power, the stars were gifted warmth and light, comets hurled through the infinite, and life on numerous worlds acquired sustenance of body and spirit. So too was our world blessed. when the great overseer of our star system caught one of those magic bolts. Using a mighty hammer, he forged that light unto the primordial anvil, and crafted the very land and sea, imbued our marble of the galaxy with the elements and all components for propagating life. And from those fantastical beginnings, we too soon came into being. And there's our first chapter. And then we would move on to the second. And I feel like this is a good time to mention that the interpretations of the constellations do not need to be literal. They just need to be applied in some way. They can be literal, or they can be poetic or metaphorical or whatever. In this case, I had lightning, which I applied to the light that this unnamed overseer caught as it was passing by him in space, and then he used that to forge the world upon his anvil. The anvil being much more literal, while the lightning simply representing bolts of light streaking throughout the universe. So you can take some liberties. The instruction booklet for the game itself even lists an example or two of this. So now what would happen? Well, one thing I forgot is when I chose one of these cards, I believe I should have replaced it immediately because there should always be 5 cards available. Now we've got the cloak and the hand. And now normally what would happen is as I was choosing, I would choose one card at a time normally. Normally I would choose one card, and then the next player would choose one card. The card I chose would be replaced, and go in a complete circle until everybody has 2 cards. I'm doing this a little bit differently since it's just me, so I just chose 2 cards right away. But we're going to try to sort of stick to that by shuffling out these cards a little bit. So I'm going to roll again, and I'm going to say that there are 2 other players with me. So I'm going to roll the dice, choose 2 of these cards based on that roll, replace those, and do it again. And then those will be the cards that I have available for myself to choose in the next chapter. Again, taking some liberties with how the rules are actually supposed to play out, but I'm sort of following them. Oops. This table's too small. I have every card available to me. Fascinating. I don't think I've ever seen that happen. You'd think rolling 12 dice, it wouldn't be so hard to just be able to choose whatever you want, but it's actually much more difficult to actually get the cards you want than you would think. Fortunately, it's not a particularly competitive game. I mean, there are rules for winning. You judge the stories based on your favorite moments in them and then award points accordingly, but it's really just for fun. Since I can choose any of these, I'm just going to roll a die. I'm going to use my Dizzy Dinosaur D6.
Dizzy Dinosaur knocks you out as he moves about. Dizzy Dinosaur, he's real nice till you roll the dice.
Who the hell remembers that game?
Not me!
I don't have the game anymore, but for some reason I still have the die that came with it. Where instead of a 6, you have the dinosaur who would run around and try and knock people over. Leave a comment if you know that game. Nobody's going to know that game. So, if I get 6, I'll just re-roll. And the temple and the hand is now out. Those are going to the second player that doesn't exist. Next player, go!
A few minutes later.
And now it's my turn for the second part, which is Chapter 2, At the Dawn of Civilization. So now I have to choose 2 more cards to form that chapter, but I also have to reference at least one of the cards from the previous chapter. So let's find out what I got to work with. And my options are going to be the elephant, the mouth is still there, the cloak, the forest, and the cave. All right, we've got our 2 new cards selected. We've got the cave and the cloak. And now from those, we craft the next chapter of our tale. The prompt being At the Dawn of Civilization. And like I said before, we need to incorporate at least one of our previous two constellations, which are the Anvil and the Lightning. So let's see what we can come up with from there. Okay, this is good enough. Sometimes you just gotta wing it. Nothing has to be masterful. You know, even the game says that it's not about how good it is per se, more about if it's captivating or if it speaks to someone or whatever. You don't want to overthink it, like I often wind up doing. Chapter 2, At the Dawn of Civilization. From the depths we soon emerged, untold centuries or even millennia following the cosmic crafting of our world from that primordial light. A sentient yet primitive race of people born of the magic emanating from our world's core, the heart of that celestial lightning from which it was forged. Living long within the natural caverns of the planet, its inner passageways a labyrinth we called home. But as we explored and developed, soon we found our way to the surface, a realm beyond the darkness we'd known, like a veil had been lifted from our narrow understanding of reality. Opening our eyes to the true majesty of our world and delivering unto our civilization a new age, one far grander than anything our ancestors ever dared fathom. Yet with those limitless possibilities, so too were untold dangers lurking, concealed behind a cloak adorned by our own ignorance. And there we have Chapter 2, which is kind of the dawn of civilization. I feel like it works better if you take some liberties with the chapter structure. You're trying to stick mostly to it, but having some wiggle room for flexibility and whatever. And now, just like with the previous chapter, we are going to essentially emulate the other two players taking their turns, just to cycle out the cards a bit. Literally only these two. These are the only ones that this player can grab. See, sometimes stuff like that can happen where you just don't have many options, so you're just kind of stuck having to work with what you've got, which again, I find weird. It seems like it wouldn't be so hard rolling 12 dice, but it is. Alright, and now it will be my turn again. We've got the elephant, still here. The mouth is still here from the very beginning. Nobody's taken the mouth yet. The snake, the fire, and poison. So let's roll and repeat the process. Another thing that would also be different in the normal game is when you chose a card, and then when it came back around to your turn to choose another card, you would re-roll the dice. But again, I'm just kind of streamlining this a bit, so we're deviating a little bit from the standard rules. But I have some ideas to deviate even more if people want to see more of these. So let me know in the comments, or if you have any ideas for how to mix things up a bit as far as the selection of cards for the stories. I have some ideas myself, but I could use some more. So there's a little topic starter for you. Alright, in this next chapter, the prompt of which a great hero emerges, we have poison and the snake. So now we have to incorporate those, and we also must incorporate at least two of our cards from the previous chapter, or chapters. We just have to incorporate at least 2 of these in addition to our 2 new ones. Let's get crafting. Chapter 3, A Great Hero Emerges, which, again, I take some liberties with the idea of a hero and apply it in not so literal a sense as the prompt suggests, which is usually how it goes. I feel like it's really easy to stick to the first prompt, but then after that, it kind of starts deviating, but it also really just depends on what you get to work with and your own creativity. Had the threats been mere beasts, we could have fended them off. Countless creatures had lived with us within the earth, so equipped were we to hunt and fight. Yet nothing could have prepared us for the danger of the world itself. From the air to the sun, the elements themselves were like a toxin to our bodies acclimated to underground survival. Luckily, it was not too late when we saw through that deceptive veil of opportunity that had welcomed us to embrace our own demise. So retaliate we did by creating the Great Serpent, a massive system of tunnels that stretched above ground like a gargantuan snake, a lifeless beast within whose belly we continued to expand our horizons, coiling the earth by our hammers and picks, as if within ourselves resided the blacksmithing spirit of the cosmic entity who created our world, forging it from our whims, just as he had done from the light of origin. And again, with taking liberties to the prompt, more or less, instead of a literal hero per se, the hero takes the form of them forging themselves a solution to the fact that they basically couldn't survive above ground, yet insisted on exploring the world beyond their boundaries. Thus, in essence, a hero was born. And now we repeat the steps one last time to work into the final chapter. Will the mouth be removed? Maybe. Or will the mouth survive this entire adventure? Stay tuned to find out. We got rid of the mouth! Alright, so I have some options. I can't use this one because I didn't get a single one. But how am I supposed to use any of these in the final chapter? The prompt for the final chapter is at the end of days. I've got an elephant, a moon, fire, and a castle. I'll figure something out. For the final chapter, I've chosen the moon and the castle. And the prompt is at the end of days. So I have to use these 2, plus I have to use at least 3 of our past ideas, or constellations, or whatever you want to refer to them. And just as reminders, those are the snake, poison, the cave, the cloak, which has just been used mostly for, like, uncertainty, lightning, and the anvil. So I have to use at least 3 of these, plus the castle and the moon, to detail the end of days. Let's get started. Here we go. We're getting into the weird, nonsensical stuff now, especially if you actually want to take things literal in the sense that these characters or their descendants would actually be telling this story, passing it on, but maybe it's happening in the afterlife with other civilizations or worlds that also ended and are passing on their knowledge from there. But also, when the prompt is the end of days, I feel like that kind of coherency gets thrown out the window anyway. But again, I'm just overthinking things. Chapter 4, At the End of Days. What is that word? That doesn't even look like a letter. What is this? I know it's 4, but
What is that? Like, I'm looking at it now and I know it's 4, but it looks like the F is just an upside down L. And because of that weird curve I put on the F for this lower one, it just looks like an incomplete O. So it looks like lure, or foor, like it's 2 O's, but that's not even a letter. It's just an upside down L. My handwriting sucks.
alas, it would be that very determination and ingenuity that would be our ultimate downfall. For after centuries of expanding the great serpent into a fortress without equal that reached across all 4 corners of the world, we set our sights higher, beyond the stars and to that mysterious orb in the night sky. Our ambitions would set the sights of our castle's endless coils to ensnare the moon. Had we only an understanding of the untold dangers beyond our atmosphere. For while yes, we did scale the sky, the deadly toxins of the cosmos were a barrier we never could have anticipated, let in to destroy all we had created by but a single breach of the cavernous monstrosity, ourselves trapped within a prison of our own design, through which the lifelessness of space was free to roam, an access point piercing the protective atmosphere leading straight to the magic light of our world's core, ending not just ourselves, but our world by our hubris. And thus concludes today's story. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And like I said, there will probably be more of these. I would like to do more of them. So give me some ideas as far as how I could structure these. They'll continue using the cards. That's kind of the main theme. But come up with different ways. I have some ideas. I don't want to spoil what those ideas are, but if you have any of your own ideas for how I could apply these, then let me know, and I'll see you next time.